Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Port Phillip City Council. The City of Port Phillip respectfully acknowledges the traditional owners of this land, the people of the Kulin Nations. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present. We acknowledge and uphold their continued relationship to this land. This meeting is being conducted in a hybrid style and is streamed via Council's webcast page and Facebook Live. Streams and recordings of Council meetings are copyrighted and cannot be altered, reproduced, or republished without the permission of Council. If we experience any technical difficulties this evening, we will adjourn the meeting for a short time to resolve the issue. I remind attendees that any member of the public addressing Council must extend due courtesy and respect to Council and the processes under which it operates, and must take direction from the Chair whenever called on to do so. Speakers must remain respectful, and statements or questions must not be defamatory, offensive, or objectionable, aimed at embarrassing a councillor or a member of Council staff, or relate to a matter outside the powers of Council. The first item on tonight's agenda is a request to attend by electronic means. I've been advised by the CEO that we have not received any requests from councillors to attend electronically for tonight's meeting. I see all councillors are present tonight, so we have no apologies. On to the minutes of previous meetings. Councillors, the minutes of the Council meeting on the 1st of November 2023 and the special Council meeting of the 8th of November 2023 have been circulated. Are there any questions regarding these minutes? If not, can I have a motion to confirm these minutes? Thank you, Councillor Martin, to move. Who would like to second this? Councillor Sierrakoff. I'll now put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Next, does anyone have a conflict of interest in a matter being discussed at tonight's meeting? No? All right, we're going to have a little change to the order of business tonight. The CEO has requested, and I have approved, that the removal of item 12.3, which is called Pickles Street Safety Improvement Evaluation, from tonight's agenda, in accordance with Rule 19 of Council's governance rules. This will be considered at a future Council meeting. I will now refer to the CEO to offer a brief explanation for this change in the agenda.
Through you, Mayor, and thank you for considering my request. Following further discussions with councillors and some feedback on alternative design options, I've determined that officers need some further time to fully analyse that feedback and to have a considered report back to Council, which we'll look to do as early as possible in the new year.
And I understand, thank you, I understand there's some members of the public in attendance to speak to this item and possibly people listening online. And due to late change, we'll still allow you, you're welcome to address the meeting if you wish to do so. And I'll move you up to the first people to speak, so due to the inconvenience. Next, we have a presentation of an award. The presentation of an award has been added to tonight's agenda. I'm proud to say that the Middle Years and Youth Services team has been presented with an award by the Park Towers Community Hub, recognizing them as the Outstanding Community Collaborator. I'll now ask Alison Kenwood, the General Manager of Community Wellbeing and Inclusion, to say a few words.
Through you, Mayor, in April 2022, the Middle Years and Youth Services team established a weekly breakfast club at the Park Towers in South Melbourne for families and children. The goal of this program was to provide nutritional breakfasts before school and a safe environment to foster community between families and better access and familiarity to Council's programs and services. Currently, the program regularly services around 20 children per week and has been the catalyst for families extending their support systems and helping each other out with tasks like taking children to school. From the success of this program and the relationship it has built with the community, the Middle Years and Youth Services team have begun adding more programs and focus on engaging and supporting youth from one of the most vulnerable and under-supported areas of our community. We are very proud to acknowledge this award tonight.
Well done to the team. That's fantastic and a real win for the community. Now we're going to move on to public question time and submissions. so we'll have public questions and submissions on report items. Under Council's governance rules, questions can only be asked about items not on the agenda. Therefore, if you're speaking to an agenda item tonight, please note that I will not refer your questions to an officer for a response. However, a councillor may wish to take up the question on your behalf when the item is considered. As promised, we'll start with the ones here for 12.3 tonight. I call upon Philip Edmonds, speaking to item 12.3. Please come up. Can you confirm if there's a red light on? If not, if you can touch it once.
No, there is.
Yeah, that's good. So the microphone's on. If you can have a seat, please, and say your name and suburb for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Sorry, I didn't hear the last part of your...
You'll have 3 minutes to speak. So name, suburb, and 3 minutes to give your part.
So my name is Philip Edmonds, and I'm from the suburb of South Melbourne. I wanted to endorse the recommendations that were made and are deferred at the moment, and I just wanted to make a few points in relation to that. So firstly, the project was all about safety as the core consideration, and notwithstanding various views that were expressed, none have disputed the fact that this intersection is very unsafe. Was very unsafe before the median treatment, and in fact, in the earlier discussions on council, there was an observation that this matter had been going, the issue had been sort of live for more than a decade, that something had to be done, and that I think one of the comments was that this is the most unsafe intersection in the city of Port Phillip. The second point I wanted to make was just in relation to majority support. So there's been various petitions in relation to this. There's been majority support for doing something, only a minority expressed doing nothing. There were a number of people, though, that said they wanted to preserve the right turn out of Bridge onto Pickles, and I'll come to that. So they supported doing the work otherwise, but wanted to maintain that right turn. I then wanted to just speak in relation to the concerns that had been raised. One of them was that this median treatment would lead to a problematic redistribution of traffic to surrounding streets, and the report indicates that that hasn't occurred. The second was that putting in the median strip would just transport the safety issue to another location, and the report has indicated that that hasn't happened. A few people complained that they might be restricted in relation to parking access on the beach side of Bridge, just close to Pickles, but that was dealt with by constructing a turn through to that parking, so that parking issue was dealt with. And then finally, there were complaints based on inconvenience, and one of the main ones, I think, was this issue about maintaining a right turn from Bridge onto Pickles. But the report indicates that, in fact, if that were preserved, as a matter of convenience, you'd be preserving a manoeuvre which is inherently dangerous, both to the turning vehicle and to other traffic on Pickles, because that had been the cause of a number of the accidents. So the summation then is that, in my submission, the trial has been completely successful, and that's what the report suggests. It's dealt with the safety issue. It's not created any new safety issues or transferred the safety issue elsewhere. It has shown no material deleterious effects on traffic distribution. It's simple and it's cost effective. And also the report suggests that as the trial progressed, the feedback during that time was mostly favourable, and indeed a number of people who had been opposed came to appreciate the safety benefits and the very minor impact on travel patterns.
Thank you, Philip. That's been 3 minutes. Appreciate you coming down tonight.
Can I make one more point? One sentence?
One sentence.
I just wanted to also observe that the report recognises Council's duty to deal with unsafe road conditions.
Thank you.
And explains the treatment would discharge that duty.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I now call upon Janet Dimlow to item 12.3. Hi, Janet. Name, suburb, and you have 3 minutes, please.
Thanks. My name is Janet Dimlow. I live at 18 Cruikshank Street, Port Melbourne. I've lived there for 20 years, since 2002. I have lived in the area since 1988. When I bought my house, the street was turned into a one-way street. So the street is dissected by Bridge Street, and the entrance is only from Bridge Street. You can't get in any other way. So because there were some accidents, it says multiple crashes, and then it says from 2015 to 2020 there were 6. Well, that's 5 years. Well, I've never seen very many accidents there, no more than I see at Liardo Street where there are traffic lights. However, I cannot get into my street from the north side, which is down Pickles Street, or from the east. I have to go around the block every time. The only other way to get into the street is to drive over the medium strip, and you can see there are plenty of tyre marks that show people have done that, because if you've got an SUV, you can do it. You can go down Pickles Street and do a U-turn, which I don't think is very safe, or you can go up Liardo Street and go the wrong way up Crookshank Street. Otherwise, you have to find your way around to the west side of Bridge Street and turn into Crookshank Street that way. My feeling is that the alteration that has been made is very simple. It's just a piece of concrete down the road. And I think that it could have been much more imaginative. At Liardo Street, there is a right-hand turn lane as well as 2 other lanes on both sides going north and south. That could be done at Bridge Street. The street is the same width, so it can be done. You've got to pity us that we live in this area because we have so much trouble going to our homes. And it's not fair. And it doesn't just impact our street. We have traffic coming from Bridge Street down Esplanade East and going over Crookshank Street, not looking. I hear yelling and tooting all the time, especially in peak hour, especially coming home. That's what they're now doing to get past us. And I'm asking the council seriously, this is not fair.
Thank you, Janet. That was 3 minutes, the buzzer, but thank you very much for coming. I next call upon Elizabeth Eadie, speaking to item 12.3 as well. Hello, Elizabeth.
Hello, I'm Elizabeth Eadie from Pickles Street in Port Melbourne, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. Yesterday I sent an email to councillors because of my concern regarding this particular issue and asking for it to be deferred. And so I'm delighted with the decision that has been deferred, so more evaluation can be done because one recognises that it is an unsafe intersection. Nobody can dispute that. The solution has not been found in my mind. It is, doesn't facilitate safe egress for pedestrians and for cyclists. Cyclists are stranded in the middle with the wheel turned, waiting for traffic to break so they can get to the other half. I see diminished numbers of people using that, which was normally a very busy intersection, because the way it's been modified, it is not easy to navigate. To my mind, and I would request council, and I put it in my email, that although it was noted in 2022 that traffic lights is the ideal solution at that intersection to manage the intersection safely and to manage the traffic along Pickles Street, which still is going much faster than the regulated speed. It would allow free access to everybody safely, and I can't really comprehend why we find it so difficult. If we can spend $15 million on a sports ground, we can't look at the cost of making an intersection in a major road as safe as we can and to facilitate safe movement of everybody by whatever means. And I really appreciate being heard. There are many other things I could say, but I'm sure you'll have more time to consider. But the main issue for me also is that there was very little consultation with the community. Unless you solicited consultation, it was not offered. and that to me is a major deficit. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elizabeth. We'll now go back to questions. So these ones are not on items on the agenda tonight, so they will be referred to an officer. I call upon Vanessa Gigliotti, submitting a question to Council. Hello, Vanessa.
Hi, thank you for your time.
Name, suburb, and you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm a bit short. My name's Vanessa. I just want to thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm a resident at Bath Street, which is directly opposite Commission Housing at 114 Inkerman Street, St Kilda. I've been living at this address for 5+ years, and I moved to St Kilda for the celebration of diversity, sense of community, the strong identity, and the history of the suburb. While there has always been crime issues at this Commission Housing, including alcohol-fueled violence, drug-affected fights, domestic cases during the time we have lived there, these issues have significantly increased over the last 3 to 6 months, which has resulted in increased fear being felt by residents and a need to contact police to report these issues at least 3 to 4 times weekly. I'm seeking guidance on what avenues are available to collectively improve the conditions we're faced with, given the significant impact now being felt from a wellbeing perspective. I fully appreciate that those individuals who are living in this Commission Housing are our community's most vulnerable, and while I am aware that the system doesn't perhaps support them as effectively as it could due to a number of systemic barriers, we now find ourselves being directly impacted by the unintended consequences of a system that isn't always set up to succeed. While it's absolutely necessary to negate any risks to our most vulnerable, I fear that in our attempt to protect those in that Commission Housing who are vulnerable, we are ignoring another vulnerability that currently exists within our residents living in this street. Having spoken to a majority of the residents on our street, there are many who are legitimately fearful to leave their house, some with young children and circumstances where syringes and items used as weapons are regularly left in the front of our homes and on the road, and unfortunately it has become the norm to attempt to avoid these items on a daily basis. On behalf of the residents, I'd like to ask what the Council's strategy is to ensure community safety while also ensuring those vulnerable in the Housing Commission are receiving the care they need. Our intent is to work collaboratively with key stakeholders including Council, DHS, which we have been doing, and VicPol to identify ways to ensure we can feel safe in our own homes and avoid the temptation to accept and normalise the violence while maintaining the community standards expected of all. I'd also just like to acknowledge the challenges this presents for all stakeholders involved and appreciate the time in considering this question.
Thank you, Vanessa. I'll refer to Alison Kenwood.
Through you, Mayor, thank you for your question. We acknowledge the concern that you've raised and the impact on community safety. So Pinaroo Village, which is at 114 Inkerman Street, is managed by public housing, as public housing by the Department of Family, Fairness and Housing, and the property is designated for residents over 50. So we've been in contact with DFFH today, their Prahran office, to get an update information on what's happening at this location. So they're well aware of the issues, and I believe they've been dealing regularly.
And to be fair, just to say they've been fantastic.
Yeah.
So really
Sorry, please don't interrupt. Let her have a response.
And they have confirmed that there's a number of approaches in place to deal with the threatening behaviour, which is they believe is largely due to squatters that are currently in empty units. So DFFH have organised nightly patrols and daily site checks to mitigate some of the safety issues such as cleaning and securing the property. The department's also working with Council's Housing and Homelessness team and Victoria Police on a strategy to move the squatters on. They propose to re-secure the property and re-let to appropriate patrons, so that would be over 55. There are some other actions that they're planning on undertaking in the coming days that they will be advising residents of, and they also will be communicating with local residents. Council's local law team will organise patrols of the street and also collaborate with DFFH on other ways to improve the street amenity. Council will also continue to work with DFFH to assist in addressing safety and amenity issues more broadly.
Thank you. I now call upon Warren Middleton, submitting a question to Council. Hi, Warren. Name, suburb, and you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, Warren Middleton, Inkerman Street, St Kilda East. Hello, Mayor and councillors. I recently attended one of the pop-up Have Your Say locations on the corner of Hotham and Inkerman Street on the 9th of November to discuss and to listen to information around the bike lanes proposal along Inkerman Street. I met several of the council representatives and was informed by one that the period of consultation would be 7 weeks. As I believe this was the first pop-up date, am I right in thinking the consultation will run now through to the 28th of December? Is that correct?
Do you have another question as well?
I do, yes. So after that one, there's at the same meeting, the same pop-up, another councillor suggested, or representative suggested that council still has the power to, if they wish, to make no changes at all to the Inkerman Street as it is and leave it in its current form. So no bike lanes or no change of traffic conditions. Is that also correct?
Thank you. I'll refer to David McNish. Is David online?
Yes, through you, Mayor. The total consultation period will run for a total of 7 weeks. This includes an extension of 2 weeks to ensure all residents have an opportunity to have their say. The engagement commenced on the 19th of October and will conclude on the 7th of December, an additional 3 weeks from now. With regards to the second part of the question, Council has not made any decision on whether or how to proceed on the project. Before making any decision, Council will consider all community feedback, including any potential changes to the design. This will occur in early 2024. In making its decision, Council will also consider its responsibility to provide a safe environment for the community and to address repetitive cash history along the corridor. It should be noted that the Inkerman Street road surface is in poor condition and requires resheeting. This will require replacement of all the existing line marking, which includes the existing bike lines.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Warren.
Okay.
I call upon Stephen Liddickett, submitting a question to Council. Hello, Stephen. Also, name, suburb, 3 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. My name's Stephen Liddickett. I live in Inkerman Street East, St Kilda, and my topic is the same as Warren's, to do with the proposed adjustments overall of Inkerman Street. Achieving optimum success in securing an alteration to Inkerman Street demands quality input and seamless operation of the individual components which support the project to that end. Given this, how do you reconcile that after years of attention and resourcing of the program, such a disrespectful, shambolic circumstances pervade around the essential but basic task of establishing good faith, effective engagement with the community?
Stephen, I understand you're here to ask a question. If you could get to the question instead of expressing your opinion on things. Thank you.
I just had to give context. The latest examples of fundamental failings are provided by the total haphazard delivery of notices to residents and businesses informing of the extension survey period out to the 7th of December. Myself and others are still yet to receive this correspondence. Some people had it delivered into their mailbox last Friday. Additionally, there are cases of multiple deliveries to the same address, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. Does the Council intend to continue to outsource to this company to waste more ratepayers' money? That's my question. Another featured shortcoming in the rudimentary engagement with the community I discovered on Saturday when, on arrival to Hotham Street, Carlisle Street intersection for the 12 to 2 pop-up session, I realised there's no pop-up in sight. I stood around at 11 o'clock and I double-checked, and there's absolutely no sign of life to take on the role of this pop-up consultation. I was looking forward particularly to speaking to David, who I was advised has some technical information he could help me with. So I made a point of going, having been to 2 others, to go to that one in particular. I've subsequently learnt that the pop-up had randomly been decided to set up outside Priceline, unannounced, unscheduled, just at Priceline. And it just happened that a neighbour had advised that they had that conversation with the people. Given the symptomatic failings in supporting the overall project, how is the community to ever have faith in the capabilities of Council to manage far greater challenges? to ensure the best possible outcome for Inkerman Street.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you very much.
All right. I'll refer to David McNish. I think there's some questions there and some more statements. David?
Thank you for your question. Through you, Mayor. Council provide information and reach out to our community through a variety of channels to help them keep them informed of what is happening in their area and seek not to rely on a single avenue for community members to become aware of projects. As part of the Inkerman Street Safety Project, this included the initial flyer and a follow-up letter following concerns from residents at the 1st of November 23 council meeting that some people had not received the initial correspondence. In addition, councillors installed 16 core flutes along the length of Inkerman to inform regular users of the street about the engagement. This was installed on the 26th of October. Council have also posted on its Facebook and Instagram social media accounts on the 23rd of October and boost this through targeted social media campaign running from the 24th of October through to the 7th of December. The project was also included in Council's Diversity e-newsletter on the 24th of October and was emailed to Have Your Say newsletter recipients on the 25th of October. Council has conducted 4 pop-up information centres along the Inkerman Street project, Inkerman Street area, which were well attended by the community. And I believe at one of them, Mr Lidcutt was in attendance. I'll seek clarification in relation to the neighbourhood engagement project pop-up on Carlisle Street and take that question on notice. Officers are also aware that some councillors have sought to share the project through their own channels to reach a larger audience. There have been a number of community members door-knocking residents and letter dropping along Inkerman Street to keep people informed. With regards to the letter drop and delivery, officers have checked with the third-party distributor who have confirmed to council that all areas have been delivered. While there may have been some double-ups, they have advised that completion of the delivery to the full area on both sides had been completed on Sunday the 12th of November. In making any decision, council will consider all community feedback in their decision-making on the project and encourage community members to have their say. With regards to delivery agent, council uses a number of delivery services and will continue to liaise with delivery agents to make sure that works are being done to an appropriate standard.
Thank you. I call upon Anne Boyd submitting a question to council.
Hello, I'm Anne Boyd from Inkerman Street, East St Kilda. I would like to go through some background to my question concerning the Inkerman Safety Improvement Project. It seems there's been council subterfuge to keep those most affected ignorant of this plan. Number 1, a council meeting on the 18th of October was stacked with invited bicycle users, many from outside of COP, who applauded the full loss of car parks option. 2, in the early stages of planning, there was an option for no loss of car parks, but council took it on themselves to ditch it and only include A and B car park loss options. There was no consultation here or right to object. 3, at the end of October, my partner found the plan leaflet on one of the southern side streets which had been letterboxed. We then discovered that Inkerman and the northern side streets, that is, those most adversely affected, had not been leafleted. It was only by chance that we first became aware of the plan, not by direct council notification. This is the end of October. The diagrams and photos are unclear and deceptive. There is a big focus on pretty planting in the foreground on the south side of Inkerman Street, but the north side with no parking is barely visible.
And I'm going to ask you to get to your question, please, because we have a process here that if it's...
Still got some of the 3 minutes, please?
You do, but it's to ask a question. So even though you're given 3 minutes...
I need to give this background. I'll be fast. So those viewing them will think, oh, that looks nice, and go for the A option. We were supposed to have our say by the online survey, but there is no provision to object to the loss of any parks. All objections have been deliberately cut out. On any planning proposal, ratepayers/residents and businesses/services have a
Point
right
of
to
order,
object
Madam Mayor.
if they will be
Yes.
adversely
So you'll need to
affected.
pause while we deal with the point of order.
Me? On
Anne,
Increment
I need you
Street.
to pause.
I want my 3 minutes, please.
And you will
What's the
have, we'll
problem?
pause the timer, you will have your opportunity to finish, but I need to deal with the point of order. We have rules, governance rules, so it's paused. You're entitled to the 3 minutes, but I've asked you to pause. What is the point of order?
I don't like to do it, but there were a number of incorrect statements, and I'd ask that they be withdrawn
You're going to
around
be more specific.
council subterfuge and deliberate misleading of the community.
All right, I will rule that you need to withdraw these questions. They're not part of the question, they are your opinion. The reason we
They're
have...
facts.
Excuse me, you have to wait till I'm done. This is following the rules from the chair and the governance rules we abide by. It is your opinion.
Can I go?
We are offering you the opportunity to ask a question. That is why we invite our community to come through. It's not an item on the agenda tonight where you can submit your opinion and your thoughts about it, the feedback.
Which
I
part
would
of this
like...
do you think is my opinion?
He has just said
What-
that the part
What
you'd
is
like...
my
to-
opinion?
What?
These are facts.
Yep. And I'm going to give you a last chance, okay? I think it's important for us to follow the rules, and I think you're taking them... Oh, we could start that. I'm going to give you 1 more minute, but the point of this is to get to the question, so I really respect that you are here to express an opinion as well as ask a question. Please get to the question. If you don't follow the rules, I'll have to come up with the next thing I'm going to ask you to do.
Okay, well, I think a new inclusive consultation where we can formally object to any loss of parking as needed. And my question, and I'll have to drop out some of this, is what steps will you take to ensure that objectors to any parking loss will be formally included in the consultation process?
Thank you, Anne. And I'll refer to David McNish for your answer.
And I object to the way that I've been treated.
I'm sorry.
Should I have my full 3 minutes?
And I gave you more time to finish, but when a point of order comes up, excuse me, we're not going to have this exchange. When a point of order comes up, we pause, we deal with it. It's part of the governance rules. If you'd like us to provide you a copy of it, I'm happy to do so. David, are you online again still?
Yes. Through you, Mayor. The engagement period's open for another 3 weeks to ensure community members can have their say on their project, and will close on the 7th of December. There are members of the community that check council website to keep informed on what council will be discussing and upcoming meetings. As per my response to previous questions, council seeks not to rely on a single avenue for community members to become aware of projects. With regards to the information provided on the Have Your Say website, in addition to the renders and plans of the two options have been made available in plan format. The minutes from the report and council meeting where options were considered is also provided, as well as a number of frequently asked questions that outline the specific impacts of each option on the street, including parking impacts and crash data. The survey allows community members to not select any option and provides open text that will be captured in the engagement report. This provides the opportunity for community members to make their points on any variant option or any comments on the design. In addition, a phone number and email address has been provided for those seeking additional information from the project team, as well as the numbers for national relay services and translation or interpreting services.
Thank you.
Through you, Mayor, can I provide a point of clarification for David there? At the start of the consultation process, I do believe that you did have to choose one of the options, but in response to community feedback, that has been adjusted so that you don't. And you are able to provide open-ended feedback, including if you have a preference for no parking loss as part of that, and we will ensure that that is reported to council.
Thank you. And I'll take the opportunity to remind that under council's governance rules, members of the public must extend due courtesy and respect to council and the processes under which it operates, and must take direction from the chair whenever called on to do so. I now call upon Katie Ryan, submitting a question to council.
Good evening. My name is Katie Ryan and I'm a resident in Mitchell Street, St Kilda, where I've lived since 2008. Sorry.
It's okay, Katie. You can take a moment if you need to.
We were recently told, without any consultation, that the house at 10 Mitchell Street, which is currently zoned by council as a general, at 10 Mitchell Street, which is currently zoned by council as a general neighbourhood residential zone, would swap from being a primarily 9 to 5 administration office Monday to Friday, which at times included AA meetings, to a 365 24/7 drunk and substance sobering up facility. This, in many respects, is the exact opposite style of operation to what has been running in this location for years. Several attempts for communication and understanding have been made with absolutely no response from the operators, which is under Nguala. So my question to the council is, was a permit issued by the council in order to operate a 24/7 facility in a general residential area? And if not, will you investigate whether a permit should be required?
Thank you, Katie. Are we able to answer that tonight, or are we going to have to take a notice?
Through you, Mayor, we thank you for the question. Sorry for your distress. We are talking to Nguala and we are talking to them around their permitting and the use of the premises, but at this time we don't have any further details, so we'll provide that when they're available.
Thank you. Okay. All right, now I call upon Megs Alstein speaking to item 9.1, Friends of Suai Covalima, the annual report 22-23.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors, for the opportunity to present this report to council. I just want to mention a few of the highlights which are included in the message at the beginning of the report, and I hope that you all have the opportunity to acquaint yourself with the report in more detail. But I think one of the features that's worth mentioning is that there are a number of very successful public events held in the city of Port Phillip during the year for which the report is concerned. And I think they're evidence of the strong community support there is for this council's program, including a very well-run fundraising event, the Trivia Night, which is an annual event now, fundraisers, an annual meeting, and various other events that have well attended and showing the support in the community for the program. In Suai, there's been another very successful year with the council's program partner, the Community Centre of Covalima. And apart from the very successful scholarship program that continues and now has over 174 scholarship awardees who've successfully completed secondary and tertiary education, there are a number of other important programs that continue to sustain that centre, including the Information Technology Social Enterprise, which the council supports largely through the computer equipment that is sent there, the computer equipment of the council, which is replenished and replaced, which is shipped over there courtesy of Rotary. And that's been an important source of revenue for the centre because they have a business from the sale of those computers. And they're used for training purposes as well. So that's been really, really successful again. Another successful event during the year, which is a different one, was that following an opportunity to present at a council event here, our coordinator talked about running a training program for women throughout the region on computers and information technology. And that was very successfully conducted during the year. So that was another great initiative. I think it's just worth mentioning that the friendship agreement is on foot and continues until 2030, even though the funding is diminishing, and as will the support of the coordinator. So we look forward to finding out more about what sort of in-kind support the council is prepared to provide, as it said at the time that the decision was made to reduce the funding. And I'd also like to mention that next year in 2024, there's a tour being proposed, a study tour, which we have conducted in the past. And we warmly invite councillors or any interested councillors to come to attend. It'll be focused in Suai and Covalima, but we'll also take in visits in Dili with government officials and hopefully the Prime Minister and to Bellabo.
Thank you. That was the 3 minutes. Appreciate that, Megs.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I call upon Janet Rosenberg, the President of the Acland Street Business Association, speaking to item 12.1, Acland Street Special Rate and Charge Renewal for 2024 to 2029. This is the intention to declare. Hello, Janet.
Hello, thank you, Mayor, councillors. I'm here to support the special rate renewal, but firstly, I'd like to thank the councillors for their support of the vacant shop program for Acland Street. Reducing the high vacancy rate is a priority for the revitalisation of the precinct, so we thank you for that. However, we still need to do more to activate the street to complement that program, which is why we need the special rate to continue. For the past 20 years, the Acland Street Business Association has used the special rate to promote and market the area in addition to council. It has allowed the Business Association to develop events that increase foot traffic while adding vibrancy and continual support to our businesses. The Father's Day car show is a prime example. We have delivered this event for 10 years now, and this year it brought more than 50,000 people to the area due to broad media coverage and our expertise, of course. Acland Street was buzzing with people and all the hospitality venues were full. We also sponsor the St Kilda Blues Festival and the St Patrick's Day Festival, which increase the music activations in the area. Both these events have grown every year and are integral to the diversity and multiculturalism of St Kilda. Aside from these major events, we offer family events such as Easter and Christmas activations with Santa Claus and a Christmas tree in the plaza to add to the festive atmosphere. We also sponsor some of the annual Linden Postcard Arts Awards. We are active online through our website and social media platforms, which are continually growing. We have over 12,400 followers on Facebook alone, and we actively promote all businesses in online competitions. The special rate has made other activities to support business development possible. For example, the design and installation of the wayfinding penguins at the beach end of Luna Park. The special rate also allows the Business Association to represent the traders as a cohesive group, giving them more influence together rather than as single traders. We can advocate to council or police on matters that affect the area and the traders, such as lighting and safety. We also provide networking for the businesses with our monthly newsletters, as well as a subscriber newsletter for the general public. None of these things would be possible without the special rate. We want to be able to ensure the activation and success of the Acland Street precinct by continuing to provide cost-effective and engaging events, which increase foot traffic to the area and are essential for its ongoing growth. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. I call upon David Blakely, the President of the Fitzroy Street Business Association, speaking to item 12.2, the Fitzroy Street Special Rate and Charge Renewal for 24 to 29, the intention to declare. Hi, David.
Hi. David Blakely, St Kilda. I'm here for the Fitzroy Street Business Association today. Thank you, Mayor. Firstly, congratulations, Mayor, on your re-election, and Louise on your election to Deputy. And it's just good to see the other councillors with happy faces. So, for over 20 years, the Fitzroy Street Business Association, or formerly the Traders Association, has represented the street, and through our surveys, it's nice to see that our traders overwhelmingly support us for another 5 years. We're a committee of volunteers, passionate, enthusiastic and forward-looking, who believe in collective responsibility, not just looking to ourselves, but looking to other partners, be it City Port Phillip, local trades, local art bodies, etc., to further develop the street. The first collective responsibility was probably about 3 years ago when we co-funded the Renewal program with City Port Phillip with a Black Lamb t-shirt from one of our participants. And we've done this now. We're also co-funding, not co-funding, so that'd be a bit of a stretch, contributing to the St Kilda Festival. So, we market the street via social media, We look for opportunities and partnering with other people. We have regular correspondence with our traders. We share information on top of the events we have. We supported Midsummer, the Midsummer Pride March from the day it started on Fitzroy Street many years ago. We've recently with the City of Port Phillip and Acland Street Traders, which I like working with, the St Kilda Blues Fest. And on events we hold ourselves, such as Halloween, etc. Looking forward, we hope to build on these events. I'm sure some won't work, and we'll keep on working hard at it. And importantly, what we have done as an association is look at the bigger picture. I truly believe our street has improved vastly in the last 4 years, not just due to the traders, also works on the City of Port Phillip and policing, etc. We've looked at innovation where we've tried to get the right retail mix moving forward. I'm happy to say the other day, Colliers, who was our appointed agent for the street, have leased a very difficult site on the streets, and hopefully that's the first in a number of successes on the street. And and the other thing we've done is the last couple of years as apply for grants or help support grants for our traders. Be it George Lane Bar, who got one of, I think it's 10 federal grants for music, local artists, etc. So hopefully today you'll support us moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. The last one I have here is I call upon Genevieve Townsend, speaking to item 14.1, the notice of motion from Councillor Crawford for Your Fest. Hello, Genevieve.
Hi,
Name,
everyone.
suburb, and you have 3 minutes, please.
Sure. My name's Genevieve Townsend. I'm representing charity Artists for Kids Culture in the suburb of St Kilda. I'm here with AKC board member Ruth Cravatt as well, with reference to AKC's grant application to the City of Port Phillip for the 2024 Your Fest event. I'll just provide a bit of background information in support of our case for funding next year's event. So Your Fest is a one-day festival that has run at Soul Green Community Centre over the last 2 years with council support. The free event centres on creativity, inclusion and community, and it reaches about 500 to 750 people throughout the day. Really importantly, the event is co-designed by primary-aged children who live in social housing and attend the weekly Arts Bus program. So I'm the program manager for the Arts Bus, and I'd just love to share a few quotes from kids who've been involved in previous events. I'll be anonymous with these, but you can trust they're aged between 5 to 12 years old. Helping to plan Your Fest made me feel proud and creative. Being involved with Your Fest has taught me about responsibility. I learnt that if you use your imagination, it can take you anywhere. So unfortunately, AKC was unsuccessful in securing a grant to run next year's event. And someone last week at our program said, "Is Your Fest happening again next year?" And we're here to try and seek support so we can make sure that it can. The budget is approximately $22,000, excluding all of our planning time and staff hours. That money really goes to pay local musicians, artists who run activities, subsidise food for the community, and people go and you can't tell how much money is in someone's wallet because it's really an inclusive event that the kids can be really proud of. So it is for them and their families, but also for everyone. So we are a collaborative organisation. We're really proud to work with schools in promoting and co-designing the event, to have service providers such as PCYC, the Salvo's Upton Road Coffee Cart and many more who come and make the day possible. And we're really hoping that we can continue from strength to strength in the third year running and have the event again at Soul Green Community Centre next year. I'll just share one more quote to finish off from a parent whose daughter comes along to our Arts Bus program. At the event, there were people who attended from my daughter's primary school, her First Nations youth dance group, the local area, the local public housing tower and low density housing. I got a chance to catch up with mob, families in the area who have been in past programs, etc. The event was LGBTQI friendly, supported the environment with recycling and upcycled art materials, and the sausage sizzle meant that no one went hungry if they couldn't afford to buy food. I think that's all I'll share for now, but we really hope that we can continue the event next year with City of Port Phillip support, and we'll leave just something on the exit if councillors want to see some photos from the event as well. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. You have a question here from Councillor Clark.
I'm just wondering, of the money that you're requesting from council tonight, do you obviously get services in kind, maybe from you mentioned Salvo's coffee carts and things. Do you raise money or get any other funding from anyone else?
Absolutely. So Artists for Kids Culture is a charity. It's been around since 1994. So I have an acquittal from a previous project. So the funding that comes from City of Port Phillip goes to, for example, we had $1,200 to support subsidised lunch. So we'd pay the Salvos. They have a coffee cart that employs, supports people experiencing homelessness. We pay $300 to cover for their materials, and then they can come and provide in-kind support. We subsidise like the twisties, so things like healthy snacks and potato twisties, that kind of stuff, and then barbecue money as well. And then a big chunk of it, about $4,500, goes towards Welcome to Country. So we had Boonwurrung Man, Jaden Williams, and then basically free performances on stage. So we try and prioritise City of Port Phillip-based artists. Venue hire of Soul Green Community Centres, nearly 1,000, stage and audio engineer, first aid and toilet hire as well. So a lot of the funding for the actual planning of the event we take on, and that money comes from, tomorrow we have an art auction, which is a big fundraiser, as well as some philanthropic support. So the City of Port Phillip funding is really there for things expended on the day. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just make a note. All right. That is the end of our public question time. So we'll move back into councillor question time. Councillors, do you have any questions that you would like to raise that are not about items on the agenda tonight? Councillor Martin?
Thanks, Mayor. I was looking at an online newsletter the other day, and this is as a result of the Climate Emergency Action Plan motion which came through at the last council meeting, which seems to have generated some confusion in our community. So this article that I read is headed, Council to spend $42 million on report writing about climate change instead of concrete actions. Now, I may have misunderstood what the report... so can I seek clarification possibly from Mr T, might be the best person. Is this statement factually correct? If not, can we clarify exactly how much is going to be spent on report writing as a result of the motion that was carried 2 weeks ago? How much is going to be spent on concrete action? And what is the timeline and the time frame for the rollout of this?
Brian T, are you able to answer that tonight?
Thank you, Mayor, and I will endeavour to, and I might need to come back with some additional details, but I can confirm that the $42 million is... for the period of time is 5 years, and the infrastructure that will be delivered over that period has been approved by council through a number of projects or strategies or policies, and that of that 42 million, about 1.8% of it is for investigations and reports, and the vast majority of it is for the delivery of those other strategies, including our waste delivery strategies, including the electrification of our vehicle fleet, as well as the use of the light globes for our streets and other initiatives of that nature. But I can provide further comprehensive details to councillors.
Thank you. Another question, Councillor Martin?
And a follow-up question. The document also says that the Climate Emergency Action Plan document and act and adapt are virtually identical, and goes on to ask whether this is perhaps not the most effective way of council producing information. Now, my understanding, and I may be wrong, but Mr T, perhaps you can correct me, is that statement I've just read out correct, or is it that the Climate Emergency Action Plan is simply a amalgamation of all the various climate actions that arise out of all of council policies, and that when the additional summary table that was carried as an amendment at the last meeting is added, it'll be very clear for people to be able to interpret it so that people won't be able to make the misinterpretations that I've just alluded to?
Brian T.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. The Act and Adapt strategy is a strategy that Council adopted in 2019. That strategy provided for a 4-year review, and that review was presented to councillors recently, and it reviewed the actions in the Act and Adapt policy. The Climate Emergency Action Plan was a response to a resolution by Council which declared the climate emergency and focused on Council's response to that emergency.
Through you, Mayor, if I may add to that. So there was discussion and debate with councillors around the merits of having 2 documents versus 1, and on balance, councillors decided to go with 2 documents. There is meant to be, and officers have tried to ensure there's strong alignment between the 2 documents so they're not out of step. But the Climate Emergency Action Plan is structured in a way to ensure that it's responding to the council resolution. And while it is strongly aligned with the Act and Adapt Sustainable Environmental Sustainability Strategy, they're not complete duplicates.
All right. Any further councillor questions?
Sorry, through you, Mayor. Yeah. Just the further question asked by Councillor Martin related to the content of Act and Adapt, which is that it does bring together in the one document all of Council's responses to all of Council's steps that Council are taking to adapt to climate change, whether that is through vehicles, through our assets and through our other means in which we can reduce our footprint, our environmental footprint.
Thank you. Any further questions by councillors tonight? Councillor Niagri?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to further clarify, was the $42 million outlined in the plan approved through the budget or through the report at our previous council meeting? I understand that we obviously added some additional funds for the new WSIDs and the officer, but with the exception of those 2 items, am I correct in understanding that the $42 million was approved by councillors through the budget process back in June?
Thanks, CEO.
Through you, Mayor, that's correct.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Niagri?
I'm happy if officers take this one on notice. This is in relation to In Our Backyard. I was just wondering if officers could advise how many of the 170 new community housing units promised to be leveraged through underutilised council assets council has delivered to date, and how many of the 170 community housing units that were going to be delivered through partnerships with other community organisations have been delivered to date.
Alison Kinwood?
Through you, Mayor, I'll take that on notice.
Thank you. Any further questions? If not, we'll move on to the sealing schedule. Councillors, we have no items for sealing on tonight's agenda. We'll move on to petitions and joint letters. Councillors, we have 1 petition response on tonight's agenda. This is 7.1 petition response, Fishermans Bend Gymnastics Club, also known as FBGC, seeking urgent funding for long-term facility. Do councillors have any questions of the officers in regards to this item? I might ask a question or 2. In the proposal if we would to support going to a feasibility study, could this also include looking a little bit outside the box, or actually vertical, in the fact that we have Fisherman's Bend coming online with a lot of vertical towers and the ability to insert a level of something other than residential or a grocery store, maybe perhaps a gymnastics facility? Would that be something that we could explore in this feasibility study?
Through you, Mayor.
Yes, Dana Pritchard online.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, that is definitely something that we can include in the feasibility study.
Thank you. Any further questions of the officers? Councillor Pearl?
Thanks. Can we get some details on what the $120,000 estimate is composed of?
Dana?
Through you, Mayor, most of it is a resourced wage, and there is some consultant fees in there as well to do some background work and some mapping.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. And a quick follow-up. When will the report be provided, and will it be provided to Council?
Through you, Mayor, the timeline on the project is 8 months, which will start as soon as funding is approved and a resource has been secured. And it will come back to Council, yes.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Niagui?
Just in relation to the funding, is it ordinary for Council to self-fund this stage of the planning process, given that we're looking to obviously partner and receive funding from the Victorian Government in the actual delivery of the project overall?
Dana?
Through you, Mayor, I would need to take that one on notice.
CEO?
Through you, Mayor, yes. Depending on the circumstances, I think in this particular case, in terms of Fishermans Bend, while we've had discussions with the task force around the Fishermans Bend Gymnastics Club and its needs, it's not quite currently figuring in any planning. And for us to have a case to include that in the future and to advocate for it, we need to get some more information, I believe, which will require some officer time to be invested in it.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Sierkoff?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to clarify for those who might be listening to this meeting tonight. It does mention in the body of the motion an additional $200,000. I just want to confirm that is Council committed to, when we vote on this motion tonight, if it is voted up, are we committed to $200,000, or does that come back to Council for further approval, depending on the outcome of this motion?
Thank you. CEO?
Through you, Mayor, I think that's referenced in the report to give an indication of the likely expenditure if we do go past the next stage and what would be required to get to a business case and more design. So we're being transparent about that in the report. There is no commitment to that expenditure. What you're signing off on tonight would be the next stage and the $120,000, I think it was, from memory. But there would be a report to Council, and Council make a decision about whether it would go further forward with that or not.
Thank you. Councillors, we have an officer's recommendation. I'd like to move this. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Pearls to move as a second, sorry. All right, I'll speak to it. This is a fantastic community organisation surrounded around the idea of gymnastics, but it brings many people through its doors throughout the week, not just the regular classes, but also with the specialist classes. The Scouts just recently had an event there. They're looking to diversify, reaching into our older persons community. It is a fundamental way for young children to develop, but they give back so much. This is a model organisation, and I think the fact that they've gone through so many moves in the last few years have been very difficult, and they've managed, and it's very impressive to see that they've managed. And the idea that they want to secure their future and be able to plan around it, who could blame them? That's a fantastic organisation we want to keep in our area. And the ability to support them, we're not quite sure how we would do it, but this feasibility study is the opportunity that we have tonight, councillors, to help them know what their options are. We don't know the answer yet, but it's very important that we start looking. Councillor Pearl?
Thanks, Mayor. I just also note there's spelling mistakes. The Fishermans Bend Gymnastics Club is spelt with an M-E-N, not M-A-N, albeit Fishermans Bend is spelt that way. They spell their club name with an M-E-N, yes, which I've never actually asked them why they do that. But one day I will.
Very true.
All right, councillors, this is the most disadvantaged, in some respects, club in our municipality that provides the most benefit. I can't think of a sporting club in our municipality that has the rental capacity or repayment capacity of a couple of $100,000.
How'd you cut off? Is it not going back on?
Chick, chick, boom.
There you go.
Councillor Crawford never misses an opportunity.
Yeah, that's right.
Get stuck into me. Anyway, just warming up for Sunday. There's no other club I can see or think of in the municipality that has that sort of capacity. The community benefit they provide is substantial. the value they provide their members goes well beyond their doors, and this is a good first step in starting to work out a long-term future for them. But we also understand that it can't be this club by itself. So I'd encourage officers to make sure that we don't just necessarily focus on this one club, that we find as many partners as we possibly can, including diving or other forms of sport that we can partner with to make the funding base for this project as wide as possible. Plus, I think this is potentially the catalyst for a substantial redevelopment of the much overdue Fishermans Bend Community Centre and potentially reclaiming some of the road or environment on that site to create a wonderful community hub which is desperately needed for that end of the municipality. So, councillors, hope you support the motion here this evening, and I would encourage you over the 8 months of this report that's being written that you pop down and have a look at their temporary premises in Port Melbourne.
Thank you. Councillor Martin to speak to it.
Fully endorse everything that Councillor Pearl has said. When Councillor Pearl talked about it being the best recreational facility provider in all of Port Melbourne, I'm the secretary of another local sporting club there, and we're very proud of what we do. But I can tell you that the Fishermans Bend Gymnastics Club has been around a lot longer than the group I'm involved with, and has supported not tens, not hundreds, but thousands of families over the 22 years that I've been involved with them, and they were going for nearly 10 years before I first became involved. I've seen it firsthand, not just the amazing things they do with looking after young people's health and teaching them skills, but the effect on their mental and social development as well, and the fact that they bring members, various diverse members of the community together, and they bring families together as well. So it's not just the fact that they provide a range of opportunities for kids to develop their gymnastic skills, but they're a fantastic community glue and help unite our community. We support a whole range of other sporting clubs in the great city of Port Phillip, and it's great that we do that. We've done our best to support this club. This investment, and it sounds a lot of money in the short term, but if we're able to get government support or Minderoo Foundation support or whatever, if we can broker something so that we can keep these 1,000+ families every year involved, we'll be doing a huge service to not just the young people of Port Phillip and the Port Melbourne area in particular, but also their families as well. I think this is an amazing opportunity for us to make a huge investment in the future of the young people in Port Phillip.
Thank you. Any other councillors want to speak to the item? If not, we'll take that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Thank you. I propose a 5-minute break. They need to swap out the mics as well. So we'll come back at 7:50. Yep. Thank you. All right. We're going to move on to the presentation of reports. The first one up is 8.1. This is the 100th edition. I was going to bring some confetti, but then I thought people would get mad at me for cleaning it up later. So, CEO report, issue 100. Are there any questions of the officers in relation to this report? No? If not, is there a councillor who would like to move this? Councillor Martin and Councillor Clark. Sorry, Councillor Clark to second it. Councillor Martin?
Well, congratulations, CEO, on having the 100th. I know it's not your 100th report, but it is the 100th report. And as a broken record, I'll say yet again, it's one of the most informative things that I read in our council. I'm going to highlight just a couple of things very, very briefly. $1.7 million of federal money for Elster Creek stormwater harvesting. How great is that? Sharing a $1.35 million grant for planning and rollout of EV charging stations on power poles in the city of Port Phillip. Brilliant. I note that we had Reclink playing their grand finals at Northport Oval. These are people who are underprivileged, come from the wrong side of the tracks. They may in Alcoholics Anonymous or whatever. Very disadvantaged members of our community. It's a great opportunity for them to get involved in sport, and I'm pleased to report that one of the grand finals was won by Port Melbourne, even though I was the umpire. There's a photo of our environmental leaders. I note 152 people have graduated through our environmental leaders program so far, with another 14 about to join them. There's a picture of the Eco Centre rebuilding program. Some of us were lucky enough to go on a tour there, and the Eco Centre is so eco-friendly when it's open. It's going to be magnificent. And last but not least, on a concerning note, and we're talking about it later in our quarterly budget update, we only have $70,000 in our proposed financial surplus for the financial, which is a concern. But CEO, thank you for such an informative report. And if you haven't read every line of it, everybody, I commend the document to you.
Thank you. Councillor Clark, would you like to speak to it?
Only to say that I don't have as much time as Peter Martin to read the CEO's report every quarter, but I appreciate his summary, and I'm sure it is a very good document. Thank you.
I'm going to ask a clarifying question from what's on the screen here, because I know it says at the top it's issue 100, but below it says issue 99. Is that just a typo? Okay, great. If you can fix that, please. Any other councillors want to speak to this item? If not, let's go to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. On to 9.1, the Friends of Suai Covalima Annual Report 22-23. Councillors, do you have any questions of the officers in relation to this report? No. All right. Who would like to move this? Councillor Baxter, and who would like to second it? Councillor Crawford, thank you. Councillor Baxter, would you like to speak to it?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, look, this is obviously another fantastic report from a fantastic group. Obviously, I encourage everyone to have a look through it and see the amazing work that they do year in and year out. I am quite interested in having a discussion around the, potentially doing the study tour and learning more about our special partnership with Suai and Covalima. And I encourage councillors to have a good look at this great work that this group can do in partnership with council, and the massive difference that we can make.
Thank you. Councillor Crawford?
This is only secondary to the amazing work that the Friends of Suai do. It's such a well-presented and easy-to-read report, and I thank you for that. So it's one of those ones that kind of captures your attention and just takes you through. But obviously the main priority of this report and the great work that you do is the incredible outreach that the centre does, but also delivers opportunities, future opportunities for members of that community. And the one that really struck me this year is how the donated computers were used to train municipal government employees. You just don't realise how much we do have, and that one really hit home. So thank you again for the great work you do, and I commend this report to the rest of the councillors.
Thank you. Any other councillors want to speak to the item? I'll quickly add, I know that when we wound back the funding over the staged process, that made it extra hard, and I think it's important that we work with you, again, to ensure that this community in Port Phillip that supports the organisation over in Suai can still thrive. So thank you very much. Let's take that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Thank you. All right, now we have 9.2. This is the Community Grants Program 2023 to 24 recommendations. I would like to remind all councillors that the attachment is confidential. And we have an officer's alt rec that will be on the screen. Thank you. All right, there was an email circulated if you need that, councillors. All right, so the change I'll read out as to item 3.3. So it now reads, endorses reallocation of the residual $35,151 funding from the Community Grants 23 to 24 program for potential allocation under the Quick Response Grants program, deleting the items underneath it. Anything else to scroll down? Is that the end? Oh, sorry, that's the only change to it. Thank you. All right. So I'll go to questions first, and then we'll have someone move that. Okay. Are there any questions of the officers in relation to the item? Any questions? If not, I'm looking for someone to move this or something else. Councillor Crawford to move it. Who would like to second it? I'll second it. Councillor Crawford?
So I was one of the councillor representatives on this committee, as was Councillor Bond, and there were and there's 3 other members on the community panel that make the assessments. It's a lot of work, a lot of reading, and a lot of deep understanding of the huge number of volunteer-based or focused organisations within the municipality that do great work. And it ranges everything from sort of sports programs to quilting programs to covers food gardens to arts programs to it's a real range of how we help support the community, and a lot of it's about social connection and building and strengthening community, and helping some of the most vulnerable. So there's sort of, such a wide range of kind of projects that we over the years and this year have looked to support. So thank you to all the panel members. I hope councillors you'll support this, because there's some really worthwhile organisations doing great things with some really great programs.
Thank you. I'd like to speak to the reason why the change has come from the officers, and I welcome the officers to correct any statements that I make. I believe that the correct budget allocation process wasn't followed in this situation, where it's been proposed for $20,000 for the heat pack development. That is a very worthwhile cause, but at this point that didn't go through the panel, so the idea would be that it's going to roll into the quick response grant panel, which has a monthly panel process, and so the opportunity is still there, and we welcome the Port Phillip Community Group to apply to that, as it has merits to the project. We know that it's very important for the extreme heat that we're expecting this summer. Is there anything you'd like to further add to that?
Through you, Mayor, apologies, councillors, for the error in process. I think the team were well-intentioned, but this should have, if this was to be a recommendation, it should have come as a recommendation from the panel, and this is the way for us to address that. So apologies. I do think the officers were doing it very well-meaning, but unfortunately we didn't follow the correct process.
Thank you. Although we can't say what the items that are being supported tonight are, we know that they range throughout our whole municipality across many different types of organisations. This is such an opportunity to support the good work being done in our community. It's great to see that there's now 35,000, is that the right amount, going into the quick response grants, because that's another opportunity for our community to demonstrate what they're doing and where they need the assistance. So I'll be supporting this tonight. Are there any other councillors who want to speak to this? Councillor Martin?
Councillor Pearl picked me up a couple of years ago and I accidentally read out the names of one of the grant recipients. I'll be very careful not to do that and get into trouble, so thank you, Councillor Pearl. Councillor Bond and Councillor Crawford, you must have had a tiring but very, very exciting time going through those applications, because they look absolutely brilliant. Thank you, CEO and Mayor, for explaining why we made that alteration. I'll be taking back to OPAC, who I know are very, very concerned with issues relating to heat stress with the elderly. The fact that there may be an opportunity for them to work with groups like the Port Phillip Community Group to express their advice as to how best community groups out there might be able to support some of our older people in terms of heat. So that issue won't be lost. I'm sure it'll be picked up by one of our community groups, and OPAC will be willing to provide advice as well. But when this list is made public, you'll be blown away by some of the amazing programs that the wonderful volunteers in the City of Port Phillip do.
Thank you. Councillor Bond?
I won't say too much other than to say that one of the things that surprised me with this was the lack of applications from sporting groups that were amongst these. I'm not giving away who's being a recipient, but there were none in either group from any sporting club in our municipality, which is unusual. So I'm just wondering if we could note for future reference, if we could contact our sporting clubs and ensure that they are aware that these grants are available, because I'm sure that they will have needs. Maybe they're too busy running their clubs to put in grant applications, but it was certainly, I'd feel better if I knew that they were aware and chose not to put in applications than to find out that they just had no idea that these things were here. So it's something we should look at for future rounds of community grants.
Thank you. Any other councillors speaking to this item? Councillor Niagui?
Yeah, I think the grants that we've put forward are fantastic. I won't name any of the recipients, but there's certainly some really excellent recipients in this list and a number of really excellent programs. It's a bit of a strange process we've gone through with this residual 35,000, and I'll have to reflect upon the conversation we've had about the potential to spend the $20,000 some other time, but I'd certainly would like to see us continue to look at ways to support people as they experience more hot weather events, and I hope I can find a way to make sure that all of us on council do that and we actually look at spending some money on that at some point.
Thank you. Any other councillors speaking to the item? If not, let's go to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Thank you. On to 12.1. This is the Acland Street Special Rate and Charge Renewal for 24 to 29, the intention to declare. Councillors, do you have any questions of the officers in relation to the report? No. All right. Who would like to move this? Councillor Bond. Who would like to second it? Councillor Sierrakoff, sorry. Okay, Councillor Bond, go ahead.
I'll speak to both Acland Street and Fitzroy Street at the same go. I know we've had a number of new business associations come along in the last 12 months with Carlisle Street, who have got their own special rate, South Melbourne, who have a business association, but they haven't struck a special rate as yet. These two groups here, Acland Street and Fitzroy Street, have been running successfully for my entire time on council and probably long before I was here. I think this is probably the fourth time or fifth time these special rates have been renewed, and then that only happens because you have people on the committees of these particular groups who look after the streets and make sure they get value for money for these rates, and make sure that they're taking time out from trying to run their own business on these streets to look after the greater combined interest of the street. And I just want to pay tribute to both David Blakely and Janet Rosenberg for the time and effort they put in, and both your committees, the efforts you put in. You don't get paid for these roles. They're often very thankless tasks. I know that both of you put in many hours, and I know that both of you sometimes get criticised by the community for the efforts you put in. Rather unfairly from people who I don't think appreciate that you're doing this as well as trying to run businesses in your own spare time, and you put in many, many, many hours of work. So, we thank you as a council, and I know the rest of your traders thank the two of you, and I know the overwhelming majority of the community appreciate everything you do to promote and activate and ensure your streets are well represented respectively, in not just to us as a council, but also to the state government, also to the federal government, also to the residents that I know you have to deal with from time to time, as well as try and keep, 150 or 200 traders happy between the two of you, or each you have in these special rates. It is a very thankless task. I just want to thank you on behalf of the City of Port Phillip. We really, really appreciate the time and effort and all that you guys put into this. So congratulations to you both.
You're here. All right, Councillor Sierrakoff, would you like to add?
Yeah, thank you. It's quite impressive that that people like Janet and David put in so much effort into the traders' associations, the groups that they do run. To quote from council notes here is that we've got in Fitzroy Street 217 properties and in Acland Street 296. So that's a lot of businesses to deal with, and getting them all on board to appreciate that when you all do come together and you pay those special rates, that you can hold so many wonderful events. And I recall one of those wonderful events as being the Father's Day car show event, where you've got cars from one end of Acland Street right down to the other, and then going all around Luna Park. And that brings lots and lots of people, families, family inclusive, and cars of all styles and vintages, which is really exciting. So I hope that these type of events will continue and will grow to bring more other events to these high streets. So, and I hope that all the other businesses also appreciate what's going on and come on board and be a part of where they want those special rates spent, so that they can also enjoy and benefit from the economic uplift by what this brings. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nagri?
I'd like to add to the chorus of praise for Janet and David and the two associations. It's not an easy time to work on a high street. We've had a lot of economic changes of late that can make it very difficult at times to have high streets that thrive. And I think it's particularly difficult also to note that Acland and Fitzroy are not just local streets, they're streets that are significant to all of Melbourne, to all of Victoria, to all of Australia, I would say. There are probably only a couple other streets in Melbourne that are known so widely, maybe Chapel and Lygon. And there are a lot of armchair critics, a lot of people who don't put their back into it, who have a lot of opinions, a lot of cheap and free opinions that they dispense at nauseum about both streets. And the thing I can say about Janet and David and the associations is they're putting their money where their mouth is, they're putting their time, their heart, their energy where their mouth is, and delivering great results. The Father Street Car Show is certainly one of them, but there are a number of incredible events and initiatives on both streets, and I'm so proud to say that they're traders in my ward and that they're trader associations, I think probably the best in our city, although I will say Carlisle and Clarendon and Bay Street are doing some good work, but I think Acland and Fitzroy really are the gold standard in terms of traders associations, and I think they can go back to their traders with great confidence and say that they deliver a really beneficial product having those special rates and having those traders associations and all the various programs. I have no doubt that with all the efforts that they are putting in that we will have many more positive results. We're already seeing a number, and I think we'll continue to see that, and I can't applaud them enough. So thanks, guys.
Thank you. Who would like to speak to it next? All good? I know we're taking the opportunity to speak to both of them, so I know that you all, both streets, really appreciate the people paying into this rate. You don't take it for granted, and you make that money stretch and go as far as you can. So I really appreciate as well, like everybody else said, the work you do. And I think it's great that you are focused on your individual streets, but you also work really well together, looking after the suburb of St Kilda and the whole municipality. I really appreciate that. All right. Are we ready to go to the vote? This is for Acland Street first. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. We'll move straight into 12.2, which is the Fitzroy Street Special Rate and Charge Renewal for 24-29. Intention to declare. Councillor Nyagri to move this. Who would like to second it? Councillor Bond. All right. Councillor Nyagri, would you like to speak to it? I think we have, yes. So unless anybody else wants to speak to it, let's go to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Thank you. All right. 12.3 has been removed, as already discussed. That would have been the Pickles Street Safety Improvement Evaluation. The explanation, if people are joining us late, was at the beginning of the meeting, that we are going to defer it to a future meeting. On to 12.4, the Cultural Development Fund, or CDF. This is the Festivals and Events Funding Recommendations. Again, I'll remind councillors that the attachment is confidential. Of course, all of these, just so you know, that all of the grants will be published on the website later on. It's just until we are able to inform who was successful and who wasn't. So, all right. Are any questions of the officers in relation to this item? If not, I'm looking for someone to move this. Councillor Nyagri, who would like to second it? Councillor Bond, thank you. Councillor Nyagri?
I'll just say another great list of grants. It's unfortunate I can't call them out by name. I look forward to attending many of them over the next 12 months.
Excellent. Councillor Bond? Councillor Crawford?
I was lucky enough to be on this committee, and can I just say, not that the standard is always not high, but this year's standard was exceptional. So to all the successful applicants, congratulations. And there will be a lot of really worthy projects that will miss out because we had less money, but also that just the standard was so high. So I just want to encourage you to keep applying. It is quite mind-blowing to see the amount of talent we have in our community.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak to the item? All right, let's go to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Thank you. So next is the 12.5. It's grant night. But all right, so it's 12 6.5 is Cultural Development Fund, also CDF. This is the Project Grant 2024 recommendations. Also a confidential attachment. Who would like to move? Oh, sorry. Questions of the officers in relation to the report? No. Who would like to move this? Councillor Nyagri, thank you for the quick hand. Who would like to second it? Councillor Sirikoff, thank you. Councillor Nyagri? No. Councillor Sirikoff? Any other councillors want to speak to the item? Nope. Rolling through them. Let's go to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimous. Thank you. Only a couple more to go. On to 13.1. This is the financial update for first quarter 2023 to 2024, the financial review. Councillors, do you have any questions of the officers in relation to this item? Councillor Pearl?
With any adjustments in the capital works portfolio, what is the forecast surplus for the end of the financial year, based on what we know currently?
Peter Liu, are you able to answer that tonight?
Through you, Mayor. The current forecast is at $71,000 cash surplus.
I guess what I'm asking is, with any adjustments that haven't been made, particularly in relation to capital works, what's your based on those movements, what will happen to the cash surplus in the next 6 months?
Who's going to take it?
Yeah.
Peter? Or CEO?
Through you, Mayor. I guess in many ways our capital spend is linked to where there's underspends, we would go into reserves and carry forward to next year. Where it's overspends, then we have to find money for it. At this stage, it's quite we haven't done an assessment in such a way that would determine how much is over or under yet.
CEO?
Through you, Mayor. So I think the first fundamental point is if we're deferring expenditure, it doesn't impact the surplus because it's going into reserves and will be used for future capital expenditure. I do suspect, based on we have a monthly executive governance group meeting, which includes reviewing how we're going with our capital program and financially as well as delivery-wise. I do suspect there'll be some further deferrals coming through as part of the mid-year budget review based on the latest information I reviewed today. But at this stage, they won't have a major impact on the surplus because most of that money will be needed in future years for those projects anyway.
And if I ask one more question, how much at risk, what's the confidence of that surplus estimate, and is the risk to the upside or the downside over the next 6 months?
Peter Liu?
Through you, Mayor. It is my view that there's a greater risk at the moment with the inflation that we're experiencing. Having said that, we do have some inflation money set aside during budgets to counter this. Given the situation as is with the contracts and tenders that's taken place recently, we've seen much more increases to what we expected.
CEO?
Through you, Mayor. I'm not seeing as much upside as we potentially had last year in terms of we had a windfall gain, I guess, really around some of the parking revenue and the bounce back. That has stabilised a fair bit, so I'm not expecting to see potentially the upside that we had last year in that space. There is a big assumption in there around the Commonwealth and how it deals with our service delivery in aged care, and that is having a major impact on the forecast surplus at the moment. So if there is a more favourable treatment of that from the state, from the Commonwealth, that could have some impact, but would probably go into, for instance, depending on Council's final decision, change costs associated with the aged care reforms, for instance, as well. But so there is still some potential for movement, but it is looking much more stable and less upside than last year.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Nyagri?
Most people probably won't read the full report out in the community. And I guess my kind of takeaway is we're doing pretty good, but we're definitely a little bit tighter than we were. Would that be an accurate kind of short summary of where we're at financially?
Yes.
Thank you. Any further questions? If not, I'm looking for someone to move this or something else. Councillor Nyagri and Councillor Martin to second. Thank you. Councillor Nyagu, are you speaking to it?
Thank you, Mayor. This is one of those like I told you so moments. I was not very supportive when we looked at reducing the amount that we were going to take with the rate cap a few months ago, and I was pessimistic and expected that things might tighten, and that seems to have been the case, and certainly would like to have had that additional money now. I certainly haven't had a resident yet contact me to thank me or even note that their rate bill had gone down. I'm not. Maybe I'll have to keep waiting. We'll see. But I mean, I think the takeaway here and the takeaway that I continually take from these reports is that we're in a really tight environment, and we need to manage our money the best we can, and we need to not, forego revenue when we can, within reason, obviously. But on balance, I continue to look at this with a little bit of trepidation because, things are tightening slightly.
Thank you. Councillor Martin.
Well, thank you to Peter and his team for producing yet again another very thorough quarterly budget review. The news is not quite as good as we would have liked, and I echo Councillor Nyagi's comments that some of us a few months ago were suggesting that perhaps we might need a little bit more income, and hopefully, possibly Councillor Bond, but very hard to cut. Let's hope we can end the year still in the black. I note that the aged care reforms have made a significant difference to the forecast. If the federal government is reasonable in the way that it handles that money, I'm told that we may have to repay some money to the federal government. I would be very keen to see if that money has been in aged care, that we find a way to keep it in aged care, perhaps in supporting even further the transition to the new model that we agreed to at the last council meeting, but we'll wait and see what happens with the federal money. I note that there's a small item at the bottom there where we're supporting another one of our amazing local community groups, the Port Melbourne Tennis Club, who have produced a couple of very, very good young tennis players over the years who've got some fantastic relationships with the local school. And you'll see lots of kids from APC, Port Melbourne Primary School, in there till dark every night, hitting their tennis balls around. Fantastic group. They're looking at providing most of the bulk of the money for resurfacing their court. We're providing a small amount towards the resurfacing, so they're doing the bulk of the work. So I think it's fantastic they're able to support yet another great local community group. And if this motion is adopted, as well as noting that we've agreed to the mildly disappointing news that we've heard tonight, at least we're going to make the smiles on the faces of the children at the Port Melbourne Tennis Club a little brighter.
Thank you. Any other councillors want to speak to the item? Is that a hand up? Councillor Pearl?
Thanks very much, Madam Mayor. This budget's concerning, and we should be alerted by it. And we need to be very diligent with our spending over the next 6 months in particular, that we don't see a curtailing in our budget situation. It's much easier to fix these issues now than fix them in a year or two down the track. These issues haven't been caused by the revenue side, it's been caused by the expense side of the budget. And there's substantial pressures in our economy at the moment. We all get that. Our federal government has been spending substantial amounts of money for a prolonged period of time that's caused a substantial amount of inflation in our economy, and our state government is spending enormous amounts of money on some much needed infrastructure projects and some not so much needed infrastructure projects, which are causing substantial wage increases and project increases across the whole economy, but particularly civil works, road infrastructure, construction at the local government level. It's very, very difficult for us to handle, and it's going to become more challenging, and it's not going to be solved in the next 6 months or 12 months. It's going to be years, I suspect. So we have to be very careful with that. It's a cost-based issue. The revenue-based issue obviously was paid for out of last year's much higher surplus amount. So fear not, that's been covered. This is an expense issue, and we have to manage our expenses very, very carefully. I don't think, by the sounds of it, we're getting any windfall gains, albeit you get a balance sheet transfer through capital accounts on capital deferrals, but you also usually get some P&L relief also in terms of reduced staff time, etc. It doesn't sound like, from what I'm hearing, we're going to get that, and we're probably on more of a negative watch. And to have an $80,000 surplus buffer into the last where are we? November is far too fine for a budget this size. We need to manage our expenses extraordinarily closely and no more additional spending outside the existing budget arrangement. We know what our revenue is very accurately. We don't have full control over the expenses management in some degree, but we do to a large degree, and we have to exercise that, particularly in the next 6 months, to make sure we don't find ourselves in a deficit situation, because that's a worst case scenario. So financial discipline over the next 6 months, councillors, is of critical importance, albeit we're facing very significant headwinds outside of our control.
Thank you. Any other councillors speaking to the item? If not, let's go to the vote. All those in favour... Oh, you want to close? Sorry, Councillor Niagara would like to close.
A number of interesting things said there, but I think the key thing here is we did see this coming. We've been in this operating environment for a while, and so, I don't know, when I looked at the budget, I was certainly keen to see us make sure that we had that revenue buffer. We didn't propose... It wasn't like we cut spending and cut a few things from the... cut revenue and then cut a few things from the spending side. We didn't do that. And, we find ourselves only a few months later in a tighter environment without that revenue buffer. And that was a choice that we made, a choice that we may have to live with, and a choice that may, not go so well if that razor-thin surplus does disappear. But it's a choice that we made, and a choice that we made knowing all the economic environment. I don't think it's changed dramatically from June. I certainly haven't seen anything to that effect, but maybe I'm reading the wrong part of the business section.
Thank you. Let's go to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Thank you. Now we're on to 13.2. This is the Project Management Services Panel. The attachment is also confidential. Just so you know. Councillors, do you have any questions of the officers in relation to the item? Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to... It is in the paper, but I just want to re-clarify perhaps that the use of the consultants is going to be funded out of salary vacancies, I think is what I've read. And do we envisage, often consultants charge more than, I guess, employees, do we envisage this putting any upward pressure on the projects and the budgets we've allocated to these projects?
Thank you. Lachlan Johnson.
Through you, Mayor, Councillor Clark, you're correct. So the intent is that these project services that are procured through the consultants on the recommended panel are funded through vacancies and salaries. In the event that specialised services are required, say an individual project, it will be funded through the project budget and will be subject to an individual assessment through the business case process. So, for example, if a project required specialised expertise in something like heritage projects or soil contamination or things like that, it would be stipulated, it would be part of the project budget, assessed through the business case, and then funding allocated. So there's no additional funding being allocated to operate this panel. It would be all through existing allocations, either for salaries and wages or for projects. When it comes to productivity, that's going to depend on the projects, the cost, etc. We've had a very competitive response to the Project Management Services panel. There's multiple providers that are recommended to be on the panel, so council can utilise that panel arrangement to ensure we get best value.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Sirikoff.
Thank you. I'm just wondering how to phrase this question. So we've got a group of businesses who will then be engaged with delivering projects. So does that mean that since we've chosen this panel, are they on some kind of retainer so that they're always available for when we need them?
Lachlan Johnson.
Through you, Mayor. No, under the panel arrangement, we don't have to use any. So this is totally at council's discretion so that we can utilise the panel if we need it. For example, if we've got vacancies or staff turnover in our project delivery space, which has been a challenge for us over the last few years, or if we need to provide those specialist services. So there's no retainer, there's no minimum spend nothing like that. It's all at council's use and discretion. But CEO might add to that.
CEO?
Yeah, so the benefit of the panel in this kind of arrangement with no guaranteed work is more around that we've pre-vetted these suppliers. So the suppliers have all been through an assessment process to be determined to be able to meet our needs, and also to get clarity around rates and to make our procurement processes more efficient. So we still have to go through a quoting process, but we'll be able to do that in a much more truncated way than if we were trying to go to the market on project by project for these resources.
Thank you. Any further questions? If not, I'm looking for an officer or for a councillor to move this or something. No, move this or something else. Yep, Sirikov. And who would like to second it? Councillor Martin, thank you. Councillor Sirikov.
I'm just really happy with the council officers have gone through this process to find a panel so we can have an efficient process of getting projects delivered. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin.
Thank you to Lachlan Johnson and his team for doing all the due diligence and arranging our staff in a way that's not going to impact in a negative way on our budget, which is just as well.
Thank you. Any other councillors speaking to the item? If not, let's go to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Thank you. All right, 13.3, this is the Council and Planning Committee meeting timetable for 2024. Councillors, do you have any questions of the officers in relation to the report? No? I'll let you catch up. Any questions? No? Who would like to move this or something else? Councillor Martin. And who would like to second it? I'll second it. Thank you, Councillor Martin. Would you like to speak to it?
Thank you to the governance team for putting together the timetable, and I know they've taken into account the views of and needs of some of our councillors. There are a couple of one-week breaks, particularly are those councillors who have families to have at least 1 week, perhaps we're not entering the council chamber. And I just note that in moving this motion, I'm almost playing God because there's no guarantee that I'll be sitting here for the meetings in November, December next year, so I might be locking 9 other people into something, but I hope they don't mind if I get it wrong.
Oh, very good. We do our best. I'll add that, yes, it is really helpful to try to arrange around some of those school breaks, but this gives the opportunity for the people to plan, our regular attendees to know when we'll be seeing you, but also we'll have that content up that people can plan around. So thank you to the team for working around some of our suggestions. I think we've landed in a good way. Anybody else speaking to that? Councillor Nyagri?
Just to note, I'm disappointed that I may be the only Port Phillip councillor to never sit in a council meeting in either Port Melbourne or South Melbourne, but hopefully with the works in both of those places completed, other councillors will get that pleasure in the future.
Good point. Anybody else adding? Otherwise, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimous. Thank you. All right. Last item in the presentation reports is the 13.4 status of council decisions and questions taken on notice recorded by council from the 1st of July to the 30th of September 2023. Are there any questions of officers in relation to the report? No? Who would like to move this? Councillor Crawford, thank you. Who would like to second it? Councillor Martin, thank you. Councillor Crawford, can you speak to it? Councillor Martin? No? I'll add, I think this is a really good document to refer to because there are questions that you might not have heard the answer at the time. They're there, as well as decisions that we have made. Vital for transparency and for our governance. All right, let's take that to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimous. Thank you. All right, that's the end of the presentation of reports. But councillors, we have one notice of motion tonight. This is item 14.1. It's a motion raised by Councillor Louise Crawford in relation to Your Fest, with R in that. Councillor Crawford, would you like to, I assume you'd like to move this motion as it's written? Yes? And do I have a seconder for this? Councillor Nyagri, thank you. Councillor Crawford, let's see. I think it's, let me ask if anybody has a question first. I think that helps in the order a bit better. Does anybody have a question in relation to the item? Councillor Bond?
Someone able to let us know what funding this organisation received in total last year from council?
Who am I referring to? Lauren, are you available to answer that?
Sorry, through you, Mayor, I don't have that information. I assume the application this year was for $15,000, so my guess would be it would have been similar-ish over the last 2 years. I'll see if I've got anyone online that can look that up. According to members of the organisation, it was $10,000 last year.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Bond?
And $10,000 the year before.
And that's the total amount is $10,000 each year for the last 2 years. All right. Could I seek an adjournment and show you something?
Sure. All right. We will take a 5-minute break. Online? Oh, thank you. All right. Thank you for taking another comfort break. Okay, all councillors are back in the room. Thank you. All right, we were at questions. Councillors, do you have any questions in relation to the item? Councillor Niagwe?
Just wanted to check that we've clarified everything. I didn't get feedback from that little adjournment. I assume everything has been sorted and that we're doing everything in accordance with the governance rules and everything else?
Yes. Thank you. All right, so back to questions. Anybody else have any other questions? Do you have a question procedure? Excuse me. Any further questions? Councillor Sirikoff?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So we normally follow a process when anybody applies for grants under whatever different scheme it's under. And I'm just wondering, are we stepping outside of that process by putting forward this motion for a grant when other people also have to follow that same process?
Lauren, would you like to answer that, or should we have a more governance?
Through you, Mayor, we have officer recommendation available in the Cultural Development Festival and Events stream. So there is money that remains unallocated in that stream. This program would have best fit the Cultural Development Fund programs stream. So you're correct, there isn't a mechanism generally under that scheme to support additional or officer recommended applicants. However, as there is money remaining in the overall stream, this was the best way to have this discussed. There was a feeling that the applicant had regrettably applied to the wrong stream and had been ruled out of contention because of that.
Oh, I guess part of that process, I guess it's people when they apply, they're really competing against other people who also want grants, and they're all worthy grants. But I'm just wondering then, when you do your ranking, who will receive a grant or not, is this taking it outside of that process of the criteria and where they would rank? And how do we know that, since they weren't actually a part of that process, where they would have ranked? We really don't know. Would it be correct that we really don't know where they'd rank? Because we didn't have the two councillors who were a part of that whole process.
Through you, Mayor, correct. Well, this applicant was assessed and ranked by the other committees, so the Love My Place committee, which there was a councillor representative of, and that committee felt that the event was of high calibre and worthy of support. However, it didn't align with the specific criteria of that stream. So it was that councillor from that committee, along with another councillor, who asked us to look at options where we may still be able to fund. So it's a yes and a no. It wasn't assessed against the other applications in the program's CDF stream, but it was assessed by a councillor and a committee in the Love My Place stream.
See you.
Through you, Mayor, Yes, it's correct that it won't be coming through the normal assessment process, but a notice of motion by a councillor to consider a request is a legitimate and often used mechanism to have these kind of things considered by council.
And would this applicant for this to be funded in some way also be able to apply for the quick response grants?
Through you, Mayor, the community grants program isn't under my remit, so I'm not familiar with that criteria. I would need to seek further advice on that. Generally, arts programs do not come under the community grants program, which is where the quick response grants are.
And through you, Mayor, the funding available on the quick response grants is actually very small per grant, so I think it's $2,000. That's correct. Yep.
If there's no further questions, we'll speak to the item. All right, Councillor Crawford.
So I acknowledge some of the other fellow councillors' concerns. I'm bringing this notice of motion for a number of reasons. We did look at the criteria around some of these, and I think that sometimes in the implementation of new criteria, things can come to light. I know the value of what your fest brings to our South Melbourne community and our young people. I sound old saying that, but the youth of our municipality. So I felt that there was a project of merit that we should bring. Is it a little out of the process? Well, it's just a different process. And part of the challenge is we've cut funding and we've done a whole lot of things and there's been adjustments. So I'm bringing this because this is a very worthy project that our community really values. So let me talk to you about what your fest brings. When I was a kid, if I had any opportunity as an arts focus, not even arts, just a kid, to help design and create a festival in my local community that was free and everyone could participate in and make it cool and develop leadership skills, organising skills, be listened to, help build community in my local area, help bring belonging, help bring joy, laughter. If that was possible, I don't think we can underestimate where these things lead to and help develop, that next generation of smart, wonderful kids that go on to be great community members. And I think this is where it starts. The arts is so much more than even if you're not going to go on and be a professional actor or creative in any way, but giving you the confidence and being part of something, and in this particular cohort, opportunity that perhaps wouldn't get elsewhere. And I think that is a really worthwhile spend of our 15 grand. So I was happy to bring this notice of motion to support this going on in our community because we know it's successful. We know it's successful beyond just in the city of Port Phillip. And I would urge my councillors a little out of the ordinary, sure. But that's what we're here to do, is to respond to community need and help support community. So I would just urge you to support this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Nyagu, would you like to speak to it?
Yeah, I'd echo the comments of Councillor Crawford. This is a really excellent festival. It has a really incredible community benefit. I had the pleasure of going along on behalf of the Mayor back in, I think it was March. It was one of the first events I went to. And the place was just bursting at the seams with a bunch of really happy kids and families participating in a bunch of really exciting and definitely engaging arts projects. There was a bunch of performances. There was a sausage sizzle. People having a really great day. And it was activating Soul Green in a way that it doesn't get activated, I think, probably at any other point in the year. It's probably the best thing we've done in that space this year, I'd say. Unfortunately, we have times where things don't quite line up with all our guidelines. I was part of the committee and that was assessing this as part of Love My Place. It clearly didn't meet the criteria there. I don't think I'm breaking any confidentiality on the committee by saying that. And so it was felt that it would be appropriate to put it forward and see if there was a way that we could get it into the correct stream and assessed in that context. So So we had some conversations. I had a conversation with Councillor Crawford, who was on the other stream in the cultural development, and worked with officers, and they agreed that it did meet the criteria, but ultimately it was just in the wrong bucket. And the best course of action was to remedy that through a notice of motion. We get accused of a lot of bureaucracy at a council level at times, and I think it's best to, when you see a problem that can be fixed simply moving a motion at a meeting and moving it to the correct bucket, that just take that opportunity and do it, and that's what I'm hoping councils will agree to do tonight. I really encourage you. We don't want to have this event not go ahead next year because we got too bogged down in which bucket they'd applied for. Instead, let's just get it funded and work with officers in the community offline after tonight to find ways to make sure that we do better articulate our guidelines to the community in future, and make sure that our guidelines clearly articulate who should apply where and the like. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillors? Councillor Martin?
Firstly, thank you, Councillor Crawford, for bringing this to our attention. Councillor Niagi, thank you for your comments. It appears that this is a very, very worthy application, but unfortunately, through some administrative error, it's ended up in the wrong bucket. Our councillors on the panel have just told us they believe it's a very, very worthy application. But unfortunately, they were unable to fund it through the particular program they're working with, given that it didn't meet the guidelines. It does meet the guidelines of another of our funds. There is money left in the bucket. So therefore, I don't see that there's anything underhand or illogical in allowing them to access funding that's available. They're not taking funding that would have gone to anyone else. For those who aren't familiar with Artist Kids Culture, they've been around for nearly 30 years, and I've been involved with them for probably 25 of those years. They are a wonderful group in the way that they're able to source money. Yes, they source money from our council, have done for many years. They source money from all sorts of other places as well. They organise their own fundraisers, and they provide some wonderful, wonderful services, some of the less privileged of the young people, not just in metropolitan Melbourne, but also in rural Victoria as well. If any of you have ever been down to Park Towers, you might have seen their art bus there, and they're there providing programs for the young people down at Park Towers on a regular basis, as they are in some of the other housing estates around Melbourne and in the country as well. I know that not only do they provide some wonderful arts programs, like the one that we're talking about here, but just to give you an idea about what this organisation is like, they also support underprivileged kids for a whole range of things. So as a school principal, I was fortunate enough to be able to work with the Artists for Kids Culture, and they were able to provide funding that enabled children to go on school camps, to provide sports uniforms, as well as supporting them in arts programs through the school. So they're not a one-off group turning up here asking for money for something that we don't know about. They've got a very, very proven track record. They've delivered this program successfully, not just in Port Phillip, but in other areas as well, very successfully in the past. They're not trying to get money through the back door. They're here because of an administrative error that got their application into the wrong bucket. And 1,500 of our young people, most of them who would be quite underprivileged, are going to have a marvellous, marvellous experience in the arts, so they can grow as people, to grow not just with their art skills, but also grow with their communication skills, improve their mental health with a wonderful day at Sol Green. So I'd be very, very disappointed if we reject this. If this motion had come to us cold, hadn't gone through any other processes, then I think perhaps these are some people trying to get money through the back door, and I appreciate some councillors are concerned that we might be stepping outside due process. I think given that they've tried to do everything the right way, they're not trying to get funding through the back door. They're simply trying to seek funding for an excellent program that through an administrative error they were unable to get in their first application. So I totally encourage you all to support this application and this motion.
Thank you. I'll add that it is very disappointing that this didn't go through a different process, and to the fact that we've made this a big ordeal tonight. I think we should be very proud to support this event. I've been to it and I thought it was fantastic. This is a fantastic opportunity to support this this organisation, to put on an event that many people come to. It was a huge success for the northern area, up in Sol Green area, South Melbourne. I think they did a great job putting in little flyers and pamphlets to the local kinders, preschools, schools, primary schools, and the attendance was, you just kept seeing people that you know from various places and saying, oh, it's fantastic, how'd you hear about this? And that really got the community to come out. I know that they're having an art auction on the 16th of November. Did I miss it? That's tomorrow night. They're having an art auction. It's an organisation that really does what they can through art to help the children. So I'll be proudly supporting this tonight. Just to clarify, the quick response grants is $2,000 for organisations and up to $500 for individuals, just since that was brought up tonight. Does anybody else want to speak to the item tonight? If not, Councillor Crawford, do you want to close? No? Let's go to the vote. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those against? 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, that passes.
I request a division.
Yes, all right. All those in favour? Crawford, Baxter, Martin, Consolo, can't write fast enough, and Niagri. All those against? Bond, Sirikoff, Pearl, and Clark. That's carried. All right, thank you. On to reports by councillor delegates. Councillors, do you have any reports from councillors delegates? No, we'll move on to urgent business. Councillors, do you have any items of urgent business? No. On to confidential matters. Councillors, we have no confidential reports listed on the agenda. There being no further business, I declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much.